Acting under divine guidance, Napoleon Hill's approach to purposeful action. You don't need more motivation, you need direction, because chances are you're not stuck because you're lazy. You're stuck because you're listening to the wrong voice. Maybe it sounds like this: I should be doing more. I don't know what step to take next. What if I'm making it all up? Meanwhile, the voice that actually knows your next move, the one Napoleon Hill called infinite intelligence, is still waiting on you to tune in. This video is for the part of you that's done with hesitation, done with burnout, done with calling it overthinking when deep down you know it's avoidance. So what are you going to learn? You're going to learn how to recognize the difference between impulse and divine instruction. Tune into what Hill called your other self. Translate inner clarity into outer action and walk forward without knowing all the steps yet. Why? Does this matter? Because until your actions align with divine instruction, every win will feel like it might fall apart tomorrow. But when your actions come from something deeper, you stop living by chance and start moving with purpose. Unshakable purpose. And if you're tired of the noise, tired of advice that doesn't stick, this will feel like truth you already knew, but hadn't put words to yet. If this message is already hitting home, hit subscribe, so YouTube keeps bringing you more like this. Let's get straight to it. Here's the truth most won't tell you: most people don't live. They respond, like a fire alarm reacting to smoke. They wait for pressure to trigger movement, but that's not purposeful action. That's survival in disguise. You wake up tired, scroll to escape, rush through tasks you didn't consciously choose. Say yes to things you didn't want to do. Lie in bed replaying everything you should have done, and then repeat. You're not lazy. You're stuck in a loop, and that loop is fed by one thing: reaction-based living. Napoleon Hill warned about this. He said that unless your thoughts are connected to purpose, your actions will never build anything lasting. Let's break this open. The core truth: reactivity feels like action, but it's empty. Imagine a man trapped in a room filling with water. He panics, kicks, flails, screams. To anyone watching, it looks like action, movement, energy, but he's not moving forward. He's reacting to his fear, not guided by intention. That's what most lives look like from above: busy, tired, always doing, but not choosing, and deep down, people know it. That's why even when the to-do list is finished, there's a lingering emptiness, because nothing done that day was actually yours. You were led by fear, or guilt, or obligation, not vision. The science of reaction. Your brain was built to survive, not to thrive. It's constantly scanning for danger. And when it senses emotional discomfort, rejection, failure, uncertainty, it pushes you to do something quickly. That's reaction. But divine guidance doesn't come through panic. It comes through presence. If your nervous system is hijacked, you can't hear the signal underneath the noise. A real example. The false yes friend texts you, "Can you help me move Saturday?" You feel the knot in your stomach. You're already exhausted. You've had no time for yourself, but before you even think, your fingers type, "Sure, no problem." That's not generosity. That's fear of being disliked. That's old programming. Saying, "If I say no, I'm selfish." So you say yes, but betray yourself. And then you wonder why you feel disconnected, resentful, or burnt out. Write this down. It's a pattern breaker. Every time I react without checking, I abandon who I'm becoming. The practice, reaction interrupt. There's how to shift from reaction to divine action in real time. Pause before you respond. Even 5 seconds can break the autopilot. Place your hand on your chest. Bring your awareness into your body. Ask, is this choice aligned with my higher path or just avoiding discomfort? This micro-interruption is how you create space for divine input, because infinite intelligence doesn't scream, it whispers. And if your life is too loud, you won't hear it. The emotional compass reactivity usually comes from fear of judgment, fear of scarcity, need to prove your worth. Guilt from the past, desperation to be seen, but divine action always carries. calm knowing, quiet strength, no urgency to explain, a felt sense of rightness. And once you experience that contrast, it ruins you for shallow decisions. You'll start craving alignment more than approval. Imagine this: you're in a stormy sea. One version of you is flailing in the water, trying to survive. The other is on the deck of a ship, still wet, still in the storm, but holding the compass. Both feel fear. Only one has direction. Which one are you today? Because until you stop reacting, divine guidance can't reach you. And until divine guidance reaches you, you'll keep mistaking exhaustion for effort. It ends here. Here's a hard truth. Most people have never actually heard divine guidance. They've heard fear, they've heard ego, they've heard childhood, wounds echoing in adult decisions. But divine guidance, that voice is quiet. And unless you learn to recognize it, you'll keep calling noise your intuition. Napoleon Hill knew this well. In Think and Grow Rich, he spoke of a higher intelligence, a still small voice that doesn't arrive through emotion, but through awareness. And here's the challenge. Divine instruction doesn't scream, distraction does. The problem: mistaking emotion for intuition. You feel a strong emotion, urgency, excitement, desire. You take action immediately. Then later, regret, or exhaustion, or confusion. Why? Because that voice wasn't divine. It was reactive emotion dressed as purpose. That divine guidance feels different. It's calm. It's direct. It doesn't rush you, it grounds you. Write this down. Emotion makes noise. Divine guidance makes sense. The three false voices people confuse with guidance. The ego voice. If I do this, they'll respect me. The fear voice. If I don't do this, I'll fall behind. The wound voice. If I don't say yes, I'll be abandoned. All three are loud. All three feel urgent. None of them come from clarity. They come from trauma, conditioning, or social pressure. And yet most people follow them daily, thinking it's gut instinct. What divine guidance actually feels like? It's not adrenaline. It's not goosebumps. It's not a motivational high. It's this: a quiet inner yes without a reason. A feeling of being pulled, not pushed. A knowing that doesn't argue or explain itself. Peace. Even when the action ahead is difficult, it often comes after the panic has passed. In the stillness. In the moment you stop trying to figure it all out. That's why Hill's concept of infinite intelligence requires silence, solitude, and receptivity. Hill's experience with the other self. Napoleon Hill described an experience where after months of discouragement, he heard a voice, not from outside, but from within. You now have the answer, it told him. Carry on with your work. He called this voice his other self, not a fantasy, not imagination. It was guidance, quiet, commanding, and beyond logic. This didn't come while scrolling, didn't come in a crowded room, didn't come after 5 cups of coffee and a panic spiral. It came in stillness. So if you've been saying, I just don't hear anything, ask yourself, have you ever truly been still? Not numb, not distracted, still. Real-world example, the wrong hell yes. Let's say you're offered a new project. It pays well, it's prestigious. Everyone says you'd be crazy to turn it down. You feel the adrenaline. You start imagining praise, income, your resume growing. But something feels off. You brush it aside and say yes. 3 months later, you're burned out. You feel off track. You're wondering how you got here again. That was adrenaline, not alignment. That was dopamine, not divine. You moved fast, but not deep. The test. How to check if a voice is divine before you act. Ask these 3 questions. Am I being pushed by fear and or pulled by vision? Do I feel pressured or peaceful? Is this decision loud and or quietly obvious? If it's divine, the answers will be clear. And if it's not, wait, because guidance delayed is better than misalignment rushed. Visual, the radio analogy. Imagine your mind is a radio. Most days, it's set to static. Thousands of thoughts, feelings, external voices. You're trying to hear God through a frequency full of ads. Divine guidance is on a different station. It requires you to turn the dial, slowly, intentionally, towards stillness. It's not about trying harder. It's about listening deeper because the signal's always there. The question is, are you quiet enough to hear it? Practical step. Build your receiver. Here's what to do today. Take 10 minutes, no phone, no input. Sit, breathe, ask, what's the next right action for me? Even if it scares me. Don't think the answer. Wait for it. It might show up as a word, a face, a memory, a sentence. Write it down, then walk with it. See what unfolds, because divine guidance is not just heard, it's confirmed through movement. By the time most people hear the name Napoleon Hill, they already think of success. Money, goals, influence, achievement, but almost no one talks about what actually powered his success. A relationship with the unseen. A daily connection with something he called infinite intelligence, and a personal private process for receiving direction that didn't come from logic, but from stillness and trust. You can call it prayer. You can call it intuition. Hill called it the other self, and once it showed up, his life was never the same. Let's break down exactly how he accessed this divine direction so you can do the same. The wall. Hill's lowest point. In his own words, Hill was on the verge of failure. He had spent years working on the philosophies in Think and Grow Rich, but no publisher wanted it. He had no money, no support, and no visible way forward. He considered giving up. That's when something broke inside him, not in defeat but in surrender. He said, "I asked for nothing. I was completely in a state of non-resistance, and something spoke within me." That voice didn't arrive in triumph. It arrived in silence, and it didn't say what he expected. It said, "You now have the answer. Carry on with your work." That was the voice of the other self. It wasn't a pep talk, it was instruction. And from that moment on, Hill began using a consistent process to access it. Here's how it works. Step 1. Mental stillness. Hill knew he couldn't receive divine direction in a chaotic state. So the first thing he did was quiet the noise. Not just physical noise, mental noise. Doubt, fear, obsession with results, inner criticism, overthinking the how. He would sit quietly in complete stillness and allow those thoughts to pass without attaching to them. In his words, only when the conscious mind is quiet can the subconscious connect to infinite intelligence. This is more than meditation. It's expectant stillness. It's not passive. It's surrender with intention. You're not zoning out. You're tuning in. Step 2. Asking the right questions once in stillness. Hill would ask specific questions, but never with desperation. He didn't beg. He didn't whine. He invited, for example, what is the next step I must take? Who must I become to fulfill this mission? What am I resisting that is blocking my progress? These weren't questions from fear. They were questions from faith in response. Big difference, because divine direction doesn't respond well to panic, but it does respond to open clarity. Step 3. The council room, a tool for receiving Hill. Developed a powerful method called the invisible counselor's technique. Every night, he would enter a quiet, meditative state and visualize a table surrounded by his counselors. These weren't imaginary friends. They were icons of wisdom. Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Edison, Napoleon Bonaparte, people whose traits he admired. In this mental room, he would ask questions, observe their responses, and receive insights as if they were real conversations. Over time, he reported that these sessions gave him ideas, solutions, and courage far beyond his conscious ability. Why did this work? Because the brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and real experience. And when done in stillness and belief, these visualizations open a direct path to subconscious genius. And beyond that, divine intelligence. You can try this. Choose 2 or 3 figures you deeply respect. Close your eyes. Picture them seated with you. Ask your question. Let them answer. Write down what you hear. What you'll notice over time is, those voices will start sounding more like your own. Because the divine isn't separate from you, it just needs a path to speak. The trap, trying to force divine input. Many people hear about Hill's method and try to force it. I need a sign now. Tell me what to do. Why am I not getting an answer? But here's the truth, divine direction flows where force ends. If you're gripping, pushing, panicking, the signal gets blocked. Imagine trying to tune a radio by shaking it. It won't work. The key is trust, stillness, clarity, invitation, patience, and then movement, because Hill didn't just receive. He acted. He followed through on what he received, no matter how uncertain it felt at the time. Today's application, the 15-minute meeting, do this tonight. Find a quiet space. No phone, no music, no input. Sit with a journal. Breathe. Get still. Ask this question. What action is mine to take that no one else can do for me? Wait. Write whatever comes. Don't edit it. Don't judge it. Don't question if it's really divine. Just follow it, not blindly, but courageously, because you'll only know it was divine after you walk it out. Visual building a satellite dish. Think of Hill's process like constructing a satellite dish. Stillness is the structure. Questions are the tuning. The I, counsel is the receiver, and your action is the amplifier. Most people never get answers because they never build the dish. They scream into the sky, but never create the quiet to receive a signal. Napoleon Hill did. You can too. And once you'll never go back to guesswork. Here's where most people sabotage everything. They receive the vision. They feel the clarity. They sense the direction. And then they wait. They analyze. They drown it in logic. The guidance gets buried under doubt. The moment passes, and they call it a nice idea instead of a divine order. Napoleon Hill never treated vision like inspiration. He treated it like instruction, orders from the top. And if you want to live under divine guidance, this shift is non-negotiable. Stop asking for signs. Start treating what you've already received as sacred. Let's break down the process of converting a divine download into decisive action. Problem: clarity without commitment picture. This, you sit in silence. You feel a deep, calm knowing. Start the business. Make the call. Write the letter. Walk away. And for a moment, it's crystal clear. You know it's the right move, but then the mind kicks in. But what if I fail? How will I explain this? What will they think? You wait, you plan, you create a smart version of the original instruction. You replace obedience with overthinking, and just like that, the power is gone. Hill warned about this. Faith without action is wasted energy. Vision without movement dies fast. The shift from vague inspiration to specific orders. Divine guidance is often simple, painfully simple, but because it's not wrapped in explanation, most people ignore it. They expect a full blueprint. But what they receive is one sentence, one image, one nudge. That's how it works, because faith isn't just belief. It's movement without the full map, and the ones who actually build something great are the ones who move anyway. Example: the writer who never wrote. She keeps hearing the same thing in meditation. Write your book. Every month, the message repeats, but instead of writing, she buys more notebooks, asks friends what they think, wonders about her niche, takes another course. She's obeying her fear, not the voice. Now imagine if she had treated write your book like an order, set a timer, sat down, typed anything, moved forward. That one act would have turned divine input into visible impact, because divine guidance isn't just a message. It's a mission, if you act on it. Why we hesitate? The logic trap: you think action comes after understanding. But divine guidance flips that. You won't understand everything until after you move. But I don't know how it ends. Move anyway. What if I get it wrong? You'll be corrected mid-move. What if I look crazy? To who? People who aren't hearing what you heard. You don't need approval. You need alignment. Write this down. God doesn't owe me the full picture, just the next step. How to translate guidance into execution, step by step. Write the exact phrase or image you received. Be literal, don't soften it. Ask, what is the first physical action I can take on this? Not theoretical, physical. Time block it. Schedule it like you would a meeting with someone you respect deeply. Treat it as sacred. Don't cancel on it. Don't demote it. Don't delay it. Track what happens after you obey. Often, the next layer of clarity won't come until you follow the first order. The difference between movement and maneuvering Hill made a key distinction. Movement, aligned action toward purpose. Maneuvering, mental gymnastics to avoid risk. Most people maneuver. They move, but in circles. They're always busy, but not directed. True divine action feels different. It's uncomfortable, but clean. Scary, but peaceful. Risky, but rooted. That's the texture of truth, and you'll know it when you walk in it. Visual. Blueprint to construction. Think of divine guidance like an architect handing you a blueprint. You don't argue with the sketch. You don't ask why. The kitchen's over here. You don't stare at it for 3 years waiting for confidence. You start building one beam, one wall, one screw at a time. If you stop every 5 minutes to question the design, the house never gets built. But if you trust the design, the house proves itself. So stop asking for more signs. You've got the blueprint. Time to build. Today's. Move, act on the last message. Ask yourself this. What's the last piece of guidance I received that I haven't acted on yet? You already know what it is. Now, take the first 15 minutes of that action today. Not the whole thing, just the first brick. Because the bridge you need is already designed. But it won't appear until your foot lifts. If you're waiting for certainty before you act, you'll be waiting for the rest of your life. Let's get straight to it. Divine guidance rarely gives you the full plan. It gives you the first step and tests your trust with silence. This is where most people back out. They get the nudge, the idea, and the internal yes, but because the full picture isn't there, they assume it's not real. Here's the truth most won't tell you. You're not stuck. You're stalling because you want guarantees. But Napoleon Hill built his entire philosophy on this one idea. Faith is the head chemist of the mind, and faith doesn't mean believing it'll work. It means moving before you see why it will. Let's go deeper. The real reason you're stuck. You think the problem is lack of clarity. It's not. You already know what to do. But you haven't moved because it's not safe, it's not popular, it's not proven. You can't explain it, so you hesitate. And the moment you hesitate, you open the door for logic to talk you out of it. That's not strategy. That's self-betrayal in disguise. Divine guidance is often irrational, not because it's reckless, but because it operates from a higher intelligence than your current fear-based logic. If you need to see the whole staircase before you take the first step, you're not operating in trust. You're operating in control. Example: when Hill was broke and moved anyway, after years of working on Think and Grow Rich, Hill still had no publisher, no money, no influence. But one morning, after a deep moment of silence, he felt the instruction. Move forward, now. No reason, no plan, no backing, but he obeyed. He began giving talks. He wrote as if the book was already sold. He acted as if the path existed, even while walking in the dark, and only after his obedience came the results. That's how divine guidance works. First movement, then confirmation. Modern example. The leap that makes no sense. You get an offer to relocate. It's not logical, it pays less, it's out of your comfort zone, but something inside you says, this is it. You want to ask, why? But the answer doesn't come, because this isn't a decision of logic, it's a test of alignment, and until you pass it, you'll keep looping through fake clarity that leads nowhere. Write this down. Divine guidance is confirmed by obedience, not by explanation. How to move without full certainty. You don't need to know the outcome. You only need to know the assignment. And if the next step has been given, stop waiting for emotional permission. It's not coming. Here's a simple framework to build. Trust through action. The trust-action framework. Name the last nudge you received. Be honest. Was it a message, feeling, sentence, symbol? Ask, what is the next physical move that would honor that nudge? Commit to a 24-hour window. Not someday, not this week, 24 hours. Silence the second guessing. Literally say, I'm not entertaining logic that wasn't there when the message came. Track what opens after that act. This is key. The next step often reveals itself through the motion of obedience. Visual, the bridge that builds. Itself, imagine walking through fog. You can't see the full bridge, just one plank, you step. Another plank appears, you step again. Another. But if you refuse to step until you see the whole thing, you'll stay frozen on the shore forever. Divine direction is like that. It doesn't reveal the road, it reveals yourself as you move. The core mindset. Shift. Stop saying, I need to be sure. Start saying, I need to be obedient. Stop asking, what if I'm wrong? Start asking, what if this is the only way forward? Because here's the pattern. People who walk in divine direction don't wait for courage, they walk into it. They feel fear, they feel doubt, and they move anyway, not recklessly, but reverently. They honor what was given, even when they don't understand it, especially then. Practical step. The obedience move today. Do this. Grab a sheet of paper. Write at the top. The last instruction I ignored was fill in the blank. Take the first physical step toward it. In me, sound. The next 15 minutes, don't overthink. Don't delay. Don't ask your friends what they think. You already received your orders. Now it's time to walk them out. O ChatGPT disse, excelente. Vamos direto ao capítulo 6, Purpose over Panic. How to stay grounded in your mission. Capítulo 6, Purpose over Panic. How to stay grounded in your mission. When life shakes you, and it will, your response will reveal one thing. Were you acting from divine purpose? Or were you just chasing control? Because here's what no one tells you. Panic doesn't show up when you lose your path. It shows up when your path is shaken and you don't trust what's holding it together. Most people collapse under pressure because they were building on fear dressed as ambition, not purpose rooted in obedience. Let's get real. If your vision crumbles every time your bank account drops, if your confidence disappears when people disapprove, if your clarity melts when the outcome gets shaky, then your purpose was just performance. Napoleon Hill knew this truth intimately. He didn't teach blind hustle. He taught anchored action, movement led by mission, not mood. Let's break down how to stay grounded in divine purpose, even when your world shakes. Problem. Emotional storms break misaligned missions. Imagine a tree with shallow roots. As long as the weather's good, it stands tall, but one strong wind and it's gone. Now picture a tree with deep roots. It still shakes, still bends, still loses leaves, but it doesn't break, because it's anchored. That's the difference between ambition and divine purpose. Ambition is conditional, purpose is rooted. Write this down. If it only works when life is easy, it's not a calling, it's a convenience. Why panic takes over? Panic happens when your nervous system thinks it's all on you, when you forget the source of your instruction, when you carry the weight of results you were never meant to control. In Hill's words, when men are forced to remain in fear, they lose confidence in themselves and in others. But when you're operating from divine guidance, panic becomes a sign, not a stop. It says, check your alignment, not your worth. Example, the entrepreneur in a dry season. He followed his vision, launched the business, stepped out in seeks, faith, but 6 months in, clients slow down, doubts creep in, he panics, starts throwing out discounts, changing the offer, abandoning his original message. Why? Because he built a mission on momentum, not on meaning. Now imagine if he had paused and asked, what was the instruction I was given before this storm? He would have stayed grounded, because divine guidance doesn't expire during setbacks, it tests through them. The purpose compass, 3 questions to recenter. When panic hits, ask, what was I told to do before I got scared? Have I actually obeyed that instruction fully? Am I letting fear redesign what faith already structured? These questions expose where you're leaking power, because power isn't about being loud, it's about being aligned under pressure. How to stay grounded during emotional chaos. This is not about suppressing emotion. It's about anchoring underneath it. Here's a 4-step grounding practice. Stop everything for 5 minutes. No input, no reaction. Place one hand on your chest, one on your belly. Breathe slowly. Say out loud, I remember why I started. I remember who sent me. Repeat your original instruction, then ask, what is the next right step? No matter how small, this slows the panic and reactivates obedience. Visual, the battlefield messenger. Imagine you're a soldier in a war zone, bullets flying, chaos all around, but you're not just fighting, you're carrying a message, a mission sealed with orders. Your job isn't to win the war, it's to deliver the message. That's what purpose looks like under divine guidance. You're not here to impress, you're not here to explain, you're here to complete the assignment, and panic only wins when you forget who sent you. The alignment move. Do this right. Now, write this at the top of a page. The mission I'm here to fulfill is, let the answer come from stillness, not performance. Below that, write, today the step I can take to honor this mission is, do it before anything else, before email, before news, before doubt. Because when your day begins with alignment, the noise of panic has less space to speak. Stand in it. Whatever you're facing, loss, delay, uncertainty, rejection, it's not here to punish you. It's here to prove you, not to the world, not to others, to yourself, to show you. You are capable of holding peace in chaos. You are ready to obey without full understanding. You are strong enough to walk your calling, even if you walk it alone, because divine purpose doesn't need applause, it just needs your obedience. Let's pause and take in what just happened. You didn't just watch a video, you were given tools, patterns, language for something you felt for a long time but couldn't name. Let's recap what you now carry. You learned to spot the difference between reaction and divine action. You learned how to identify the voice of infinite intelligence versus noise and ego. You discovered Napoleon Hill's own method for receiving and translating divine instruction. You understood the process of turning vision into movement without needing the full map. You accepted that obedience often comes before clarity, not after. And you now know how to stand in purpose when panic hits without abandoning your mission. That's not motivation. That's transformation. But here's the deeper truth. This only works if you walk it not once, not when you feel inspired, but daily, because divine guidance isn't an event. It's a relationship, one that speaks in silence, moves in uncertainty, confirms through action, and rewards with alignment. You've outgrown trying harder. You've outgrown the voice of fear disguised as logic. And if you've made it this far, that means something clicked. You're not meant to live reactive. You're not here to collect information. You're here to receive instruction and move with purpose. So ask yourself this, and be brutally honest. What instruction have I been ignoring that I'm now ready to obey? Write it, say it, act on it, today, because faith without obedience is just noise. But faith with obedience, that's power, that's alignment, that's peace. You're not who you were when you clicked play. You're clearer, sharper, calmer, commissioned. Now move. Like it. If this anchored something in you, hit subscribe and let's keep building forward.